not all as bad in the handling of the coronavirus pandemic, we should say. It's true a vaccine has not yet been developed against COVID-19, but in many other areas of medicine and healthcare, there have been strides taken in the battle against the coronavirus. And of course, given its advanced high-tech and health tech sectors, it's not surprising perhaps that Israel has been in the forefront of some of these developments. Now, we've reported on several of them on i24NEWS over the past few months, but now journalist and author Jodie Cohen has taken a more comprehensive look at these advancements in a new book titled Tikkun Olam, Israel versus COVID-19, which surveys approaches developed here in the areas of prevention, testing, patient care, and the crucial search, of course, for treatments and vaccines to beat the coronavirus. And Jodie Cohen joins us in the studio. Jodie, I just want to explain, Tikkun Olam is a religious term. It means healing the world. It comes from Judaism. Let me just say, as a journalist, I'm envious you were able to get this done so quickly, just a few months. First of all, before I get into specifics then, what is it about Israel that has been able to really, in some areas, despite its relative small size, of course, lead in these advancements in contending in some ways with the coronavirus?
Right, so I think that is a really key question. As John Medved from Our Crowd says, he recently announced a pandemic innovation fund to invest in all these startups that are looking at different potential solutions to try and help tackle the coronavirus. Israel turns curses into blessings. So what do we mean by that? So, for example, Israel is a country that has very little water, and yet we are now one of the leading global water recyclers. We invented drip irrigation, and we even export water. So we turn what are serious challenges for this country and look at a way to pivot them to try and sort of turn them into a positive, I guess. So Israel is very agile. As you said, it's known as the startup nation, seriously involved in innovation across many different sectors, but the biotech sector specifically as well. So the book looks at key innovations that are being developed by the scientists, the doctors, the CEO startups, and also looking at what the non-profits are doing in the key areas of, for example, vaccines.
Well, let's get into some specifics then. So talk about some of the specifics that you cover in your book here.
Right. So, for example, yesterday, a company called Vaxil Bio announced that they are moving on with their candidate vaccine towards animal testing. So they're moving on to the next stage of the process in testing their vaccine. The Israeli Institute of Biological Research, they announced recently that they have a potential passive vaccine, and they're moving from...
Explain a passive vaccine.
A passive vaccine is where it's almost like a treatment and a vaccine, because it looks at putting antibodies from people who've recovered into patients so that they can recover and also help them prevent from getting the coronavirus. And they're moving from testing on hamsters to testing on bigger animals. So very positive signs. There's something like 150 potential vaccines that are being worked on across the world, or a number of them in Israel. So there are positive signs, and I would say that even though these are difficult times, people are being, they're suffering economically. Many people are suffering from a health perspective, and their families and friends as well are suffering. But I think the book really suggests that despite the difficult stage we're all in, whether a country is in the first wave or going through the second wave of the coronavirus, it really suggests that there's cause for optimism.
Well, give me another example outside of the vaccine field, which of course is the holy grail here.
Yeah.
But what in terms of what things have come up, maybe in terms of more prevention rather than as a cure?
So, for example, I wanted to also talk about the non-profits and what they're doing. So United Hatzalah, in the space of one weekend, they created the Track virus, which was one of the world's first contact tracing apps. Innovation Africa doing incredible work. Obviously, the first thing we're told in order to protect ourselves from getting the virus is wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. But for people in remote villages in Africa, that's not so easy when they don't have easy access to water. So they're doubling their efforts to get solar energy and water pumps to remote villages in Africa, some of the most vulnerable communities really in the world. The one thing I would also say with all of this is, with the treatments and the vaccines, it's not like people always talk about the race for a vaccine. It's not a winner-takes-all race. We're going to need many treatments, we're going to need many vaccines, and we're also going to need them to be flexible. Some might work on some populations and not on others, and the virus might, well, it already has mutated. So we're going to see a constant need for these innovations. So, we're going to have to obviously keep an eye on all these developments across the world, but there are promising signs, and we're going to need a lot of them in order to help so many people across the world.
Okay, so I want to again remind our viewers, it is the book is Tikkun Olam, Israel versus COVID-19. And of course, Israel has faced some difficult odds in other battles and other wars. Right now, the situation isn't so great, we have to say, in Israel. Maybe that has more to do with government policy than the innovative tech sectors of Israel that you cover here. But hopefully, in the near future, these will bear greater fruit for the general public here as well. Jodie?
And if people want to find out more information, they can look at a blog, tikkunolamisrael.com, where I'll be updating on the innovations in the book, and also the book's available on Amazon.
Okay, Jodie Cohen, thanks for joining us.